Have you ever felt that the deeper you think, the more distant you become from others? That the more you understand, the less people seem willing to listen? If so, you're not alone. Throughout history, society has often been wary of those who think beyond the surface. Not because these individuals are wrong, but because they see what others refuse to acknowledge. From Socrates to Galileo, from Tesla to Nietzsche, brilliant minds have been silenced, ridiculed, or ignored, not due to a lack of intelligence, but because their insights made people uncomfortable. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most brutally honest philosophers, argued that intelligence itself is a burden, one that isolates those who perceive the world too clearly. But why does this happen? Why does society resist those who think differently? The answer lies deep in human psychology. When you encounter someone physically strong, you don't necessarily feel weak. You may even admire them. When you meet someone wealthy, you might envy them, but you don't feel personally attacked. But intelligence is different. A highly intelligent person doesn't just introduce new ideas. They force others to confront their own intellectual limitations. This is known as the mirror effect, a phenomenon where the presence of deep thinkers makes others feel inadequate, even when no words are exchanged. Unlike wealth or strength, intelligence is deeply intertwined with identity. We define ourselves by our thoughts, our beliefs, our understanding of reality. When confronted by someone who challenges these, it can feel like a personal attack. This is why intellectuals have historically been cast aside, not because they seek isolation, but because society instinctively pushes them away. Studies have shown that confidence often outweighs intelligence in social settings. People gravitate toward those who project certainty, even if their ideas are shallow. This explains why charismatic but simplistic figures gain influence, while deep thinkers, who speak with nuance and complexity, struggle to be heard. Populist leaders, motivational speakers, and social media influencers thrive by reinforcing what people already believe, rather than encouraging critical thought. The paradox of intelligence is that the more one pursues truth, the more disconnected they become from the majority. This isn't just a social phenomenon. It's rooted in neuroscience. Research has shown that when people feel intellectually inferior, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, becomes highly active. In other words, deep thinking doesn't just intimidate, it triggers a survival response, akin to facing physical danger. But why does intelligence provoke such a reaction? The answer lies in evolution. For most of human history, survival depended not on intelligence, but on group cohesion. Those who questioned authority or deviated from the norm were often cast out, left vulnerable to the elements. Our brains are wired to prioritize belonging over intellectual curiosity. A deep thinker disrupts this balance, threatening the harmony of the group. Instead of being seen as a source of wisdom, they are often perceived as a threat. A fascinating study from Stanford University found that people are less threatened by deep thinkers in one-on-one conversations. But in group settings, the discomfort intensifies. Why? Because in social groups, status becomes paramount. If someone feels intellectually overshadowed, they instinctively seek to diminish or exclude the deep thinker to maintain their own social standing. Psychologists have identified several cognitive biases that explain this resistance to intelligence. The Dunning-Kruger Effect. Those with limited knowledge overestimate their intelligence, while highly intelligent individuals tend to doubt themselves. This friction leads to dismissiveness of deep thinkers. Status quo. Bias. The brain favors familiar ideas over new, complex truths. Intelligence often disrupts this preference, making people uncomfortable. The Backfire Effect. When confronted with facts that contradict their beliefs, people don't change their minds. They double down on their original views. Deep thinkers often experience this firsthand when introducing challenging ideas. In the digital age, this resistance to intelligence has only intensified. Social media prioritizes engagement over depth, favoring viral content that evokes strong emotions rather than intellectual discussions. Simple, Catchy and often misleading sound bites outperform thoughtful analysis. As a result, society increasingly values entertainment over enlightenment, making it even harder for deep thinkers to find widespread acceptance. So what does this mean for those who think deeply? It means that the struggle of intelligence isn't just social, it's biological, psychological, and cultural. Society doesn't fear intelligence itself. It fears what intelligence reveals. The rejection of deep thinkers is not about their ideas being wrong, but about them being disruptive too soon. Schopenhauer saw intelligence as a double-edged sword, a gift that grants deep understanding, yet isolates those who possess it. He argued that most people live driven by the will to live, seeking pleasure, comfort, and social validation. Deep thinkers, however, develop a will to truth, a relentless desire to understand reality, even when it leads to discomfort and alienation. This fundamental disconnect explains why intellectuals often struggle to relate to others. Where the majority finds meaning in relationships, entertainment, and routine, deep thinkers question these very foundations. They see through the illusions that many take comfort in. Social interactions, often filled with small talk and social status games, can feel empty. Ambitions that drive most people, money, power, reputation, may seem meaningless to them, as Schopenhauer put it. A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsocial. Yet, despite the loneliness that can accompany deep thought, there are ways for intellectuals to navigate society without losing themselves. Schopenhauer suggested embracing solitude as a privilege rather than a punishment, using alone time for intellectual and creative pursuits. Seeking like-minded individuals, whether through books, philosophy, or exclusive intellectual circles, engaging with society wisely, understanding when and where to share deep insights, and recognizing that not every conversation needs to be profound. History shows that society only embraces intelligence in hindsight. Thinkers like Socrates, Galileo, Nietzsche, and Tesla were all dismissed, ridiculed, or persecuted in their lifetimes. Only later did their ideas reshape the world. This cycle continues today. Intelligence, by its very nature, is disruptive. It challenges norms, unsettles the status quo, and forces people to rethink what they take for granted. And for many, that is an uncomfortable, even frightening experience. But deep thinkers are not doomed to loneliness. Understanding the forces at play allows them to navigate society more effectively. They may never be fully embraced by the majority, but they can find connection with those who appreciate depth and insight. They can learn to communicate their ideas in a way that resonates, without diluting their essence. Deep thinkers see the world differently, and that will always make some people uneasy. But that does not mean they should stop thinking. The world needs deep thinkers, even if it doesn't always know how to accept them. After all, it is those who think beyond the present who shape the future.